Hello, welcome to beoch and klutz knitting and crochet. My name is Maria. I thought I would do a little sample version of a shawl that really caught my interest, and I found it on allfreeknitting.com, and it is called Diamond Sparkle Shawl, and it's really pretty, and it's a very elegant but a subtle elegant shawl that you can dress down or dress up depending on the kind of yarn you use. The yarn that they're showing in the pattern is Bernay Satin Sparkle, and it calls for 5 balls of yarn, which I believe has 105 yards and 80 grams in each ball. But you can use any 4 worsted weight yarn or Aran. They're using the Satin Sparkle, which has a really subtle sparkle to it. Another comparable yarn would be maybe Love Soft Dazzle would work. The only stitches you need to know how to do are knit, purl, well, cast on, knit, purl, knit 2 together, yarn over, SSK, which is slip, slip, knit, and PSSO, which is pass, slip, stitch over. So it begins at the bottom, and you work your way from the bottom up. So you work the edging first. The needle size they're calling for is 5mm US 8, or whatever it takes to obtain the gauge. The gauge is really important, so I would suggest doing that. And you can use any yarn. To give you an example, I'm going to be making mine with Lion brand Mandela, which is a light 3. And mine's going to be popping up in different colors. And because it's a black yarn in stripes, different lengths of the different stripes, and the pattern, it has lace work in it, it won't be like straight striping. It would pop up in different sections, which I want. This colorway is called Magic Moon, and it has a lot of light gray, white, even pink is down in the grill of the snarl of the yarn in the gut. And it goes from a light gray to a darker gray to a white to a light gray to a light purple to a darker purple, which is coming off looking kind of blue in this lighting, but it's really a dark purple, and then a blue also. So there's different amounts in there of each color. So if you were just knitting a pattern straight, like stockinette, back and forth, or garter, it would block out like stripes. But if you're doing a pattern, it's going to pop up in different places, and that's the surprise of it. You don't know. So I found my gauge using a 6.0 with a light 3 baby yarn. And again, this is called Mandela by Lion brand. This one here is a 4 medium worsted weight yarn that I'm going to do the sample with. And it's a multiple of 10 plus 5, and they call for 105 stitches. So I'm going to do a small sample using 55 stitches. The gauge is 18 stitches, 24 rows with a 5mm needle, or US 8, and then you just adjust it to get to 4 inches by 4 inches, or 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. This yarn here is by MainStay, and I don't have the ball band right here, but it's a really beautiful yarn, and it's an economical yarn, and this color is grape, and it's a really nice purple. MainStay Basic Yarn is $1.97 at Walmart, and it's 7 ounces. And what I really love about MainStay Basic Yarn is, even though they don't have a lot of colors, their colors are really pretty. And the yarn is consistently soft, but not splitty soft. You know, sometimes you can get a yarn that's an economical yarn, like maybe a Caron Simply Soft, and it will be a lighter 4 and then irregular in areas and a little splitty. Or you might get the Super Saver Red Heart, and it might be a little scratchy, and in areas it might be a 3 and then a 5 and then a 2. I've never had that problem so far with basic MainStay Basic Yarn. It stays consistent. I have unwound this about 5 times now and worked up different projects on it, and it stays beautiful. And it's nice. It's nice. It's just nice and soft. It acts like a high-end yarn, which I really love. So instead of like $2.97 or $3.27, you get 7 ounces in each skein, and it's really soft and consistent, and a definite 4. So I'm working with my Takumi Clover interchangeable needles. You can make this shawl on straight needles, but you'd probably have to have 14 to 16 inch at least to hold all your stitches, because when you are working with yarn overs, they can slip off. So I'm using my 24-inch cable just to keep my stitches all on, even though I'm doing a small sample. That's what I'm working with. So I'm going to go ahead and cast on with a long tail cast on. And again, it's 18 stitches, 24 rows, stockinette. So it's knit 1 row, purl the next, knit 1 row, purl the next, till you get to 24 rows, 18 stitches, and then you block it. So either dip it in some water and press it out, or you can steam spritz it with an iron and let it dry, blow dry it if you have to, and then that's when you measure it. If you are, speaking about the gauge, if you are coming to like 5.5 inches or 4.5 to 5 or something like that, you'd want to go up in your needle size. So if you've got too many stitches, bump your needle size up until you get 4 inches. If you're not getting enough stitches, you want to drop down needle size. So you'll need a measuring tape, scissors, and your needle. So the way I do my long tail cast on is I just drop about 6 inches of a waist tail over the top of my needle, and then I wrap around the middle of the needle. I'll wrap maybe 20 loosely. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, or 25 I'll do. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, because I'm going for 55, so I'm going to shove these off here and hold on to it here. And remember that I had about this much a waist tail, so I'll pull that up. So 25 and 50 and a little bit more. And I'll probably have a little extra, which I would rather have than a little less. I don't estimate well sometimes with this. So the way I do my slip knot is I now have this long tail, and my working yarn is connected to my skein. So I just hold my yarn over this way and pull down and twist and grab the strand that's over my index finger and pull. Everyone does their slip knot different, do whatever is comfortable for you. This is not really a tutorial for people that don't know how to knit, but for people that do, there's a few stitches that are special, but mostly it's just purling and knitting and then an action row of your lace work. So I'll show you a little bit of the row and then stop the video and come back and show you the rest. So we begin with the edge or the cast on. So I put my fingers between the two strands and shove down like that, and I've got a little slingshot. Go underneath my two strands on my thumb, and then I go under the strand on my index finger and up in between the thumb space and let go. Again, up under the two strands, around and under that strand there, and right up again, and over and up. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all on here, 55, and I will come right back and we'll see how much I have left over. And I call this channel Beoch and Klutz Knitting and Crochet because I will be klutzy and drop stitches, and I will look at the wrong row and tink out and start over, and frog out when I'm crocheting and start over, drop stitches and pick them up, realize I'm looking at the wrong row and have to take the whole thing out. It happens, or get tangled up, and I'll kind of whine and complain through that, and I want to keep it real and show that you can make mistakes and learn from them. That's how you learn. How I learn. So this would be the cast on. The other reason I picked the long tail cast on is when you do the long tail, you're actually creating the first row of garter stitch, which is knit. So that first row that you're working, especially because we're going to be purling, can be a little bit awkward, just like when you're crocheting the first row. And I like to have a little something to hold on to, and I've already got my stitches here to hold on to. So I'm going to get these on and I'll be right back. Okay, so as things go, I didn't estimate well, so I'm going to make a smaller sample, which is going to be 45 stitches. This is going to be a really tiny shawl, but it will be a good sample because I only have that much left. Because I did a really goosey cast on. I did a really loose cast on. So a better way to estimate sometimes is to, what knitters say sometimes is knit 10, or go ahead and cast on and knit 10 stitches and then gauge from there, because you never know, just pulling the yarn and estimating, you never know how your how your actual knitting's gonna be, you know, and you have a few stitches that are loose and it doesn't work. So we purl the first two rows of the edging, and the working yarn is in the front, the tail's hanging out there. In fact, I might tie this up just to have it not be in the way and not end up knitting it. So I'll just make a little tiny knot there just so I can really see it. Okay. So yarn's in the front to purl, and you're going from the right needle, if you knit that way, right to left over the top. So right to left, the needle's on the top. You wrap around the top needle and you shove off. And you bring your yarn back in the front and you purl. And that's all you do. I haven't tried it, but for people that really don't like purling, there is a lot of purling in this pattern. For me, I'm going to go ahead and purl. I think you can get away with knitting on the rows where it says to purl. And when we get to the actual lace pattern of the body of the shawl, there every other row, the alternate rows of that lace pattern that we're going to repeat to grow the shawl, is basically a lot of purling. But I think you could switch it around and knit. Totally up to you. I know some people stay away from patterns that have a lot of purling. I like the way the purling looks on this. It really, excuse me, shows off the design really nicely. So, everybody purls different, but I'll show you a couple different ways. Years ago, my mother-in-law taught me what she called an acronym of stab, snuggle, and slide, which I found kind of funny. And she would hold her needle like this and put her yarn in front below the stitch and come in and stab straight across and wrap around. And she would call it snuggle and slide. And she taught me that just to help me remember it. And it does work. It just matters how you want to hold your yarn, if you want to be kind to your shoulders, your neck, your elbows, your wrists, whatever. Important thing is that your yarn is in the front. If your yarn is not in the front, you'll end up making extra stitches and it won't really be a purl. Excuse me. The other way is to continental purl, which the way I do that is, and everyone does this different, is I use this finger and I push it to the left of the stitch and I hold on to it with my thumb. And I go into that stitch and then I come around and grab it off. And this way you're not coming off the needle, you're just guiding it. So you're kind of like doing like a loop over loop, like so, like this. But it does change the tension of your knitting, so your purls might be looser. Totally up to you. Sometimes I find it easier to just continental or Mediterranean purl and knit. This would be English style. And right now I have a little, or American style, I have a little bit of a death grip on my stitches just so I don't lose them. Because that first row can be a little slippery on Takumi Clovers because they're buttery soft. They're it's bamboo and silk and they get really smooth. So you're just going to purl all the way across and I'll be right back for the next row. Okay, so I have purled across And now what I'm going to do is not join. If you're working with the circular needles, you don't join, you just turn. Just turn and work back and forth flat. So I'm right back here, I've got my empty needle here, my working yarn here. And I'm just going to, I want to get around that first. Get my yarn in the front and start again. So this is row 2. Okay, so I'm going to purl across the second row and I'll be back for the third row, which is the action row and has your lace and open lace stitches in there. I'll be right back. Okay, so now we are on to row 3, and this is the action row. And what we're going to do is knit 1 stitch, so our yarn is in the back when we knit, and we're going to go left to right, and now we're going to be wrapping around our bottom needle crisscrossed. That's crisscrossed like this. We're going to wrap around our bottom needle with our yarn that's in the back to knit and push off. So we're doing the opposite of what we did with purl. And we're going to yarn over. A lot of people, when they yarn over, they come forward like this, but that actually is a yarn forward. And it took me a while to realize that when I was doing lace work. So a yarn over goes like this. The yarn is away from you. You always make sure it's away from you. So that's a yarn over. It's just kind of hanging out there. And then we're going to knit 4. And then we're going to knit 2 together, so we're going to go underneath 2 stitches, just like you would 1 stitch. You're going to go under 2, wrap around, get that loop under there. We're going to do it twice. It's inside of parentheses. When you see parentheses in a pattern, you do what's inside the parentheses, which says knit 2 together, and then you do it as many times as it says outside of the right parentheses, and it says twice. So we're going to do it twice. So just like crochet, where it tells you how many times to do it, it's inside of brackets or parentheses, that's what we did. So we knit twice, and then we knit 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll do that repeat one more time, and it ends with a yarn over. So we yarn over, and then you're just going to repeat that to the very last stitch and knit that stitch. So I'll do this row with you and then tell you what to do for the next few. So again, it ends with yarn over, and the yarn over is this way, and then we knit 1, and yarn over again, and knit 4, and then we knit 2 together again twice. Snuggle through there. and then knit 4. And yarn over and begin to repeat again till you get to your last stitch, and then you knit that last stitch. So I'll come right back when I'm at the end. Okay, so to finish the edging, all you're going to do is repeat row 2 and 3 2 more times. So you're going to purl the next row and then do row 3, which was the row we just did, the action row. Then purl 1 row again and do that row 3 and end on row 3. And then I'll come back to show you how to finish it off, the edging. And this pattern is going to be in hopefully 3 videos, where this was the introduction, the edging, the next video will be the actual body and lace pattern of the shawl, and then the end will be the border. So I'll be right back after I've I've done those 2 rows 2 more times, purl a row, 2 and 3, 2 and 3, and I'll be right back. Sorry, I just wanted to come back to tell you, you will purl, excuse me, computer's trying to update. You will purl your yarn overs, and what they'll look like is this. They'll just be hanging out like this. So they can be a little flimsy to get into. You just want to hold on to them and purl those yarn overs too. So be on the lookout for those. And then it'll just be purling all those yarn overs, and that's what's actually going to give you your spaces, your little there you go, spaces there. Okay, so you want to make sure to get them, or else you'll just have a big hole there, which you want a hole for a space for the lace, but you don't want a big dropped hole. So I know that was something that was really confusing to me when I first started doing lace work, is what do I do with this yarn over? Do I put it with another stitch, or what do I do with it? You purl it or knit it, whatever it tells you to do. You treat it like a stitch. Okay, so I'm just going to continue on row 2 and 3, and I'll be right back. Okay, so you should be able to see little blocks down here, and that is the edging. And you'll see them here, and you'll see them here. So, and then we turn, and we're on row 8. And all we're going to do for this very simple row, we're going to put our yarn in the back and knit all stitches. So the entire row is just knit. And I call this a stabilizing row. And you'll really be able to get to see the pattern, the shape better after you do this knit row. So again, make sure you get your yarn overs in there. See those yarn overs just hanging out there? This is English style knitting. So now you can pull down on it and see the actual pattern begin for the edging. One thing I always have to remember is to move my stitches around on my needle, so I'm not going into the bottom of the stitch, like the little, the actual stitch, the below the stitch, but into the actual stitch. If you wanted to continental knit, you would hold your yarn in the back with your index finger and grab like this, and see that yarn over there? It's hanging out there. You would just keep your yarn in the back and grab it here. Yarn in the back, grab it here. And then you're not coming off the hook. So again, totally up to you. I vacillate between both, just to be a little easier on my arms, but you don't have to. Do whatever makes you happy. Your body happy. It's supposed to be relaxing. Just make sure your yarn's in the back. Your stitch count will be going up and down throughout this pattern. So don't try to correct it if you suddenly have more stitches on one row, because what you're doing, it'll always go back to your stitch count, but what you're doing is you're decreasing and increasing as you go. And that's what's creating spaces. Okay, and you just knit your way across. The last stitch, 12 stitches. And now to end this edging, and I'll show you what it looks like a little bit. I can get it in the light. The edging will be really pretty. You can kind of see it start to take shape already. All you're going to do to end the edging, and I'm going to end the video here and go to the next video to begin the body. Row 9 and 10 of the edging is purl 2 rows. So you're going to purl across on 2 rows. And then I'll meet you back in video 2 for the pattern, the actual lace pattern of the shawl. And I'll show you a couple of repeats of it, maybe every other row, because every other row you'll be doing the same row over and over again. So I'll show you the action rows and have 1 repeat, and then you're just going to keep doing that until you get to the length you want to get to. and then I'll come back in video 3 for the border. Be right back in video 2. Thanks. Happy knitting. Purl 2 rows.